My Best Friends Live in the Woods. The Adventures of Albert by Anne Michelle Moracek. Chapter 23. And All Bowed. I didn't know you could sing, Anthena said to Jillian as they yawned and settled into the cedar thicket to sleep. It would be a short night at that. Everyone had been up dancing with the fairies to the wee hours of the morning. I sing to myself all the time, Jillian blushed. Well, everybody heard you sing now. Anthena was proud of her best friend. You should give concerts. You could be famous, like the cricket that lived in the daffodil, she beamed. Oh, I don't think anyone would want to come to a concert, Jillian shook her head. I would, Anthena insisted. Good night, Anthena. Jillian yawned and curled up close, her head against Anthena's back. The sun was high and warm when they woke. All the forest folk had slept late and at noon were just beginning to stir. Mother Deer was up and nibbling on moss close by when Jillian and Anthena began to stretch and blink awake. Good morning, Mother Deer smiled at the girls, or should I say good afternoon. What a night we had, Anthena said. Do you think we'll ever see the fairies again? She asked Mother. Perhaps, but not likely, Mother said in a serious tone. I remember the lantern walk before this one. I met a fairy named Moon Pearl. She was the softest glowing pink, and I loved her instantly. We played all night, and she promised to come and play again once a month. For me, once a year. She never came. I was so certain she would come to me last night. I looked for her all over the glen. Just as I was giving up, I saw her darting about with Tommy Red Fox. I trotted over, and all excited I said, I'm here, it's me. She glanced over and said, who's me? Turned her back and her attention to Tommy. She didn't even remember me. Mother Deer was obviously sad and feeling rejected. Jillian tried to console her. Mother Skunk says fairies daydream too much and have no responsibilities. It makes them lazy and they have short memories. Mother Deer thought about this for a while, then her mood brightened. You know, I think Mother Skunk is right. She is wise. Jillian nodded. Wise and kind. I should pay her a visit. Do you think she would mind if Anthena and I came along with you back to the cave? Anthena pranced about. Oh, goody, could we? She kicked up her hooves. I love it when you do that. Jillian hugged Anthena's neck. Mother would love a visit, Jillian insisted. As they made their way to the cave, they chattered about the fairies they had met. Sometimes I think it would be fun to be a fairy, Anthena said. I would pick violet wings. I don't think they choose, Jillian said. They just are what they are. Probably so, Mother Deer joined in. Well, I'm glad I'm not a fairy, she said with emphasis. I wouldn't want to forget my promises. What good is an almost endless life if you can't remember it? Jillian nodded. So true. It's the promises we make and keep with each other that shape our lives and express our love. Anthena nuzzled her friend. Well, I promise to always be your best friend, she beamed. I promise too, Jillian beamed back. As they neared the bend in the stream where the big rocks made the water splash and foam, who should be there but Tommy Red Fox? Good morning, ladies, Tommy grinned. I'm glad I saw you, Mother Dear. I could tell you were upset last night. Did I do something wrong? His expression was confused and serious. Oh, no, not at all. It wasn't anything you did. It's just that Moon Pearl had promised me a monthly visit at the last lantern walk, and last night, she didn't remember me. The hurt still sounded in her voice. I suspected as much, Tommy nodded. I even asked Moon Pearl if she knew you, and she said, I don't know. I don't remember. So then I asked her, what did you have for lunch yesterday? And she said, what is yesterday? Can you believe it? He laughed. Silly fairies. He chuckled. Mother Skunk says fairies have no sense of time. They just are. Always in the present, Jillian offered. Well, it must be true, Tommy nodded. What an air brain. He laughed with a big belly laugh. You should make up a song about fairy air brains, Anthena teased. Now be nice, Jillian smiled back, but the thought did have some appeal. They said goodbye to Tommy, and in just a few minutes more, we're back at the cave. A thin curl of smoke could be seen drifting its way up from the tiny chimney. The pine wreath on the front door was falling apart and bits were dangling. I think it's time for a new wreath, Jillian observed as they pushed open the door. Bluebell and Molly were washing dishes and called out as they entered. Well, hi there, they greeted. Come in, warm up. Bluebell nodded toward the hearth. Mother Skunk was not in her overstuffed chair, as always, but sitting straight backed on a stool to the right of the chair. It looked so odd. Then they were shocked to see the great horned owl in her place of honor in the big chair. He was talking, and Mother Skunk was nodding at full attention, her paws folded neatly on her lap. Her apron ribbons were tied in a neat bow behind her. Anthena, Jillian, and Mother Deer stopped in their tracks and exchanged glances. Then they turned and tiptoed back into the kitchen. What is all that about? Mother Deer asked Bluebell in hushed tones. We don't know, Bluebell whispered. Tidal showed up at the window with a message from Mother. She immediately tied her apron and began running about, tidying up the hearth room. She sent the little ones out to play and put Albert on watch at the top of the hill. Then, a few minutes later, the great horned owl was at the door. Bluebell exclaimed with reverence in her tone. The great horned owl has never visited here before that I can remember, she added. Mother Deer nodded. Well, perhaps this is not the best time for a visit after all, she said. Anthena, we should probably go. She nodded to the door. Just then, Mother Skunk stood up and began walking into the kitchen, Owl walking in a waddle right behind her. Ladies, he nodded to the group in the kitchen and started to the door. Mother opened the door for him. He turned and said, "Ooh, think about what we discussed. Ooh." He waddled out the door, then spread his beautiful silent wings and flew off. Mother Skunk closed the door, leaned back on it, and sighed. It wasn't until she had taken a couple of deep breaths that she noticed the 5 of them staring at her. "Oh, hello. When did you get here?" Her expression was confused. "Should we leave?" Mother Deer was serious. "Oh, no, please stay." Mother Skunk was sincere. "I need to talk this through, and you're just the ones to discuss it with. Let's get some tea, chamomile, I think, and sit." Once they were arranged around the fire hearth and Mother Skunk was in her overstuffed chair as normal, she began. "Apparently you made quite an impression last night, Jillian," Mother began. "I was here on behalf of the prince, the Great Stag." "Me? What did I do?" Jillian was shocked. "Your song!" Anthena was excited. "It must be your song!" Mother Skunk nodded. The Great Stag was so impressed with your voice and the song, he wants to give you a title and official duties. Mother Skunk stated very flatly with little emotion. Jillian couldn't tell if this was a good thing or a bad thing, so she sat silent and waited for Mother to continue. But Mother was silent. After a bit, Jillian couldn't stand it and had to ask, Mother, am I in trouble? Trouble? No, but there is much to consider. They want to give you the title Official Singer of the Royal Stag, Official Singer of the Ceremonies. Mother Skunk was not kidding. She had never been so serious. What does that mean? Jillian asked, her eyes wide. Anthena's jaw dropped open, and Mother Deer hung her head. I see Mother Deer understands the consequences, Mother Skunk said, looking at her friend. Jillian looked around the room and became frightened. Again she asked, Mother, what does that mean? Mother Skunk smoothed her apron and looked at her lap. You would be expected to compose and sing for every ceremony and meeting of the forest royalty. You would be expected to be always available and drop everything and anything at the summons. Jillian nodded. So far it didn't sound so bad. Why was Mother so serious? There is more, isn't there? Mother Deer said in a low voice. Mother Skunk nodded. She welled up with tears and had trouble getting the next words out. You would be expected to live the life of a priestess and never marry, never have children of your own, as they would interfere with your duties. Mother Skunk was still looking down at her apron. She couldn't bring herself to look at Jillian. A gasp went out of Jillian, then she ran into the bedroom and threw herself on the great moss bed. It was too much. It was unthinkable. She had always wanted to be just like Mother Skunk and raise a family of her own. Back at the hearth, Mother Deer was talking in low tones to Mother Skunk. When do they need a decision? She asked. By the next full moon. That's only a few days away, Mother Deer protested. She's awfully young to be making such a huge decision, she said sternly. Mother Skunk nodded in agreement. As the mothers talked, Anthena tiptoed into the bedroom and sat next to Jillian, saying nothing. When Mother Deer rose to leave, Anthena was still sitting silently by her friend. Is it all right if Anthena spends the night? She nodded in her direction. Yes, of course. Mother Skunk nodded in approval. Presently, Albert trotted inside. He had seen Owl fly off, but no one had come and gotten him off watch duty. And not knowing what was going on, he had stayed his watch till it had gotten dark. Finally, he decided to go inside and find out what was happening. Mother Skunk looked surprised when he walked into the kitchen. Then she rushed to him and gave him her biggest hug. Oh, darling boy, I forgot you were still out there on duty. Can you ever forgive me? Her eyes welled up with tears. Of course, no worries. It was a lovely sunset. Just tell me, what is going on? Albert studied her face. As they sat, Mother Skunk retold the events of the day. What are you going to tell her to do? Albert asked Mother Skunk. Oh, no, she shook her head. That is a decision only she can make for herself. I would say no. For me, family is everything, she offered. But Jillian has a special gift. My gift was being a mother. Hers might be in song. We shall just have to wait and see. Jillian had withdrawn into herself. She had a decision to make that would change the rest of her life. The forest hadn't had a priestess for decades. everyone knew of the last priestess. It was so long ago that no one living had even been born. But legend was told of a beautiful silver fox who had last had the title. She wore a flowing robe and was fed in turn by the offerings of every forest creature, bowing as they presented their daily feast. She presided over every gathering with her beautiful melodies, opening and closing every ceremony. Her voice could be heard floating like a magic river through the evening mist at the Great Stag's dinners, or so it was told. Did she want to become a legend or a mother? She had always assumed she would meet someone, fall in love, and have a family, and make tea at her own hearth. But she had not met anyone. It seemed Bluebell might have the beginnings of a boyfriend. She had seen a quite handsome fellow skunk talking with her. He had walked her home from the great glen after the fairies had turned back into the sparkling mist and then disappeared. But no one seemed interested in her. Still, she had always seen herself living out the life Mother Skunk had set such a fine example of. Her mind flipped and flopped back and forth, trying to imagine a future one way or the other, neither of which she could really see. The few days that were left till the full moon seemed to drag by in an eternity and flit by in a blink of an instant, all at the same time. Word had gotten out all over the forest. Conversations had turned from discussions of the fairies to pondering over the choice Jillian had laid before her. The Great Stag could have commanded her, but instead he gave her free will to make a choice. Title was sent out the morning of the night of the full moon. He was tasked with inviting every creature to the great glen for an announcement. Everyone knew Jillian's decision would be revealed. The problem was, Jillian still hadn't made one. Her mind was as confused as ever. The summons was made. Owl swooped into the cave door and bowed to Jillian. "Follow me," he said to her. Without a word, Mother Skunk, Albert, and all 22 of her siblings watched as she stepped out of the cave door. She turned around and blew them all a kiss, then closed the door. "That was goodbye," Mother said. At dusk, they all joined the rest of the forest folk in the great glen. Owl and the prince, the Great Stag, were in the center. When all was quiet, a lovely soprano voice began to rise closer and closer. Then they saw her. Jillian looked transformed. She had silver ribbons tied in her hair, and a violet robe was draped over her shoulders, flowing behind her as she approached. "Oh, my! The priestess approaches! Woohoo!" Owl called out, and all bowed. Chapter 23, And All Bowed. Discussion and questions. Promises, talents, and choices. Jillian revealed her talent to sing at the Lantern Festival. Each of us have special talents. Sometimes we choose to keep them private. Sometimes we choose to share them. Question 1. What talents do you keep to yourself? Question 2. What talents have you shared? Mother Deer had her feelings hurt when Moon Pearl failed to keep her promise to visit. Question 3. Is there someone who has not fulfilled a promise to you? Question 4. More importantly, is there a promise you have made you need to fulfill? Question 5. What promise did Anthena and Jillian make to each other? Jillian's singing brought her the attention of the Great Stag. He offered her a life path choice that would completely change her future. Question 6. Are there choices you have made that have sent you down a new path? Question 7. How do you find a balance between career and family? I am the composer and performer for all the music in this video. Both audio recordings and the printed scores are available on mybestfriendsliveinthe.woods.com. I will provide the link below. The painted illustrations are also my creation. Prints are available on mybestfriendsliveinthe.woods.com. This is a novel. The chapters are meant to be heard in the order in which they were written. And while each chapter can stand alone, they do build as new characters are introduced and past events are referred to. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The chapters are numbered, so if you're just joining us, be sure to go back and watch from chapter 1